Well, it's now time for our Tobago segment. We will be talking about the Tobago Writers Guild Literary Affair. Joining us from Tobago, we have Mrs. Laureen Boris Phillips. She's the PRO and past president of the Tobago's Writers Guild. We also have on set Anne-Marie Davis. She's the vice president of the Tobago's Writers Guild. Ladies, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rina.
How are you all doing this morning? Very excited, I'm sure, about this upcoming event.
Yes, very excited about our 9th annual literary affair.
9th annual, wow. So this has been ongoing for quite some time.
Yes, it has been. The group was actually formally launched in 2010, although we had been in existence before that. And since 2010, we have hosted this annual event, the Literary Affair, which has become one of the most sparkling events on the Tobago social calendar.
Wonderful. Why do you think you will have enjoyed such great success?
Well, I think Tobagonians used to read a lot and write a lot. You know, we have quite a few quite famous authors from Tobago like Mr. Roach and so on. But, you know, in the last few years, we have seen a decline in that. And I think the island was hungry for an organization like this, because when we started it, we found that there were many people who came sort of quietly out of the woodwork who had been writing privately all the time and who simply did not have an avenue to display their work, you know, so that we have had a really good success in getting people to join the organization. Mrs. Davis is one of those who came to us, but she had already been writing before that, you know.
Wonderful. So, Mrs. Davis, could you tell us a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing over the past years in terms of your writing?
Right, good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. I have been writing quietly. Actually, I started in first form in Bishop's High School, and I think I grew under the tutelage of my English teacher. I give kudos to Mrs. Agnes Murray Thomas. I used to write lots of poems and short stories, and my mom is also a published writer, so I think I kind of inherited her genes somehow. So I have been writing. To date, I have a total of 35 poems.
Wonderful.
And about 3 short stories that I've done.
35 poems. What are some of the topics you choose to write about?
Okay, I have written things like God the Potter, You the Clay, nature, why, love, patience, cry of a young man. And I've also tried to change my style, so I've also incorporated a few dialect pieces, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
That sounds
social
wonderful.
Commentary, yes.
So do you write based on personal experiences a lot of the times?
It just happens. Sometimes I'll just be in a writing mood. As I say, my writing genes would just, you know, kick into gear, and then I would just write. Sometimes I write from personal experiences. Sometimes I write from things that have impacted me in my work environment and also in the society at large.
I'm particularly interested in that first one that you spoke about, God the Potter, You the Clay. What is that all about?
Okay, that is about allowing God to use us and mold us into the individuals we are intended to be. For us not to fight God, but to kind of follow his lead, and he will do the work. So he will mold us and shape us into the individuals we are supposed to be.
Very, very encouraging words there. Also, Mrs. Boris Phillips, what do you think, how would you describe the current state of literary arts culture in our nation?
Well, as somebody who was brought up in the time when people read widely, and one of the signs of being well educated was that you were able to read and discuss a range of topics, I am a little saddened by the fact that people don't seem to be reading anymore. They don't seem to be writing much anymore. And then sometimes when you see the kind of writing that passes for writing sometimes these days, it makes you wonder, you know, people write this text language and it gets into their normal everyday writing, and you wonder what is happening. And it was out of this concern in Tobago in particular that we decided we wanted to form this Tobago Writers Guild to encourage writers to promote reading and writing in Tobago, and to give writers a place where they were comfortable, where they can share their work. It can be critiqued among ourselves, you know, and because of constructive criticism, you can have improvement over time. We were also concerned about the fact that nobody is recording our history as time passes. We, of course, know about Dr. Susan Craig James and Dr. Rita Pemberton, who have been doing work about Tobago's history and so on. We are very, very grateful to them. But they are only two individuals, and we thought that other people need to get into the game. If even you are not writing specific history by your stories and your poems, you are actually recording the things that are happening around you and giving different aspects, different, you know, different views of what is happening around you. All right?
Why don't you think people are not reading and writing as they were many years ago?
You know, many years ago when I was at secondary school level, and that was a long time ago, a librarian had said to us that they are finding that because of the onset of, or the introduction of television, people are not reading as much as they used to. And that is because when you are reading, you have to work harder. Your imagination has to create the pictures in your mind that are described in the book. And therefore, watching television is an easier thing because the pictures are right there in front of you and all you do is follow the story. But that of itself means that people's imagination to some extent is not being developed. And as you would realize, Verna, for us to create anything new, to invent a process, you need to have an active imagination. So the fact that people are not reading as much as they used to, they are not using their imaginations as much as they used to, we are losing as a people. And to me, we need to think about that seriously and try to see what we can do to encourage our young people in particular to read more and to write more in order to be able to express themselves, you know, easily.
Now, as you raised that topic about developing the young people in terms of their imagination, I don't mean to stray, but in a recent, well, not recent, but several years ago, we spoke to Dr. David Bratt, who's a renowned pediatrician here. We were talking about the SAA examination and stresses that children face. One thing that he said is that the importance of playing outdoors, he stressed on that in terms of developing the imagination of the child, interacting with nature. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as someone who would have benefited immensely from that, I would have grown up in Tobago. And I remember really halcyon days when you would be going for walks in the moonlight up the fort because Tobago was so safe in those days. We would make mango chow and put it in an old canvas bag we had in the house, and we said we would be going hunting in the back, and we'd gone up through the bush and we would create something like a little tent space under a tree and sit down there and eat our chow because we had hunted and we got this food and we were eating, because all of that would be what would have been going on in our heads, in our imagination. So Dr. Bratt is right. Children need to have those experiences, but life is not as safe as it used to be. So parents, and sometimes I'm sorry for parents, they get blamed for everything. But parents are not comfortable in their minds to just let their children roam anymore. And so the idea is that I know my children are safe, they are in the house. But what do? It's all the computer games and everybody is, you know, sliding and poking and whatever. And so therefore the children are losing out, and I am really not too sure how we're going to change that, in all honesty.
Wow.
You know, but I recognize the problem. I think most people recognize the problem, and it's something we have to think about in terms of how we are going to improve the situation.
And on that note, Mrs. Davis, do you think young people are being drawn to your organization, the Tobago Writers Guild, and do you think that there are strategies in place to attract them?
Well, I think, well, we have had some individuals who have come, some young people, but I think the genre that they like the most is the spoken word. I think that has a special appeal to the youth. So those who come are usually those who are involved with spoken word. A few are involved with poetry and a few with short stories. But we don't have a big following, if I may say. So we are kind of working on that because we like to increase the numbers in terms of the youth. Because remember, they are the ones who will carry on the legacy of Tobago Writers Guild as we grow older.
Wonderful. So when is this much anticipated event?
Right, our event will be taking place on Wednesday, the 30th of May at the Anne Mitchell Gift Auditorium in the Scarborough Library. We want to start promptly at 7 p.m. The cost is $100. We have been selling tickets. Most of our tickets have been gone to date, and you will have a wonderful time. Right there, all our members will be showcasing their work. We have some new members, so they will also be showcasing their work. So we want to invite all lovers of the art form to please come out and support. We'll also be having special prizes, and there will also be a cocktail reception at the end. So it will be a fun-filled afternoon. So we're inviting everyone to come out and have a good time.
It sounds pretty exciting.
Yes, it will be.
Mrs. Boris Phillips, I once heard a teacher say that if you ask the average 8-year-old in Trinidad to describe the solar system, they may not even know where to begin. If you ask the average 8-year-old in the United States to describe the solar system, they would go into such detail that you will be blown away. Do you agree with that, and why do you think that's the case?
All right. Let me admit that the headpiece fell out a little bit, so I missed some of that. But I take it you are making a comparison between the child in the United States and the child in Trinidad and Tobago.
Correct.
All right. Why is that? Our education system is a development, a progression from our British colonial education. And while we have attempted to change it, to improve it, to more suit us, I think we still have a lot of work to do to really bring it into the state that is going to best serve us as a developing people. And so the comparison is apt in the sense that this is probably something that will happen if we were to ask similar questions. But the truth is that it may be their education system emphasizes other areas that ours may not emphasize. And it may not be that there's anything wrong with that, because your education system should be tailored to your culture to allow you to function best in your particular environment. And so therefore, it may be the knowledge about the solar system, which in a sense is general knowledge. All of our children should have some idea about it. But perhaps I should admit that I have a vague idea about it, but I don't have a lot of detail except the understanding that, we revolve around the sun and that kind of thing, So I think you are probably right. But we need to think of adjusting our education system to suit our culture, to produce the kind of stable, well-adjusted individual that we would want to function in Trinidad and Tobago.
But do you think that we focus on holistic development, though? Because I've also heard teachers say that they think that our education system focuses on teaching a syllabus as opposed to teaching the children.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would. But Verna, I have to accuse you of asking me questions outside of my range of competence. While I teach, I'm not really a trained teacher, but I would want to venture the opinion that yes, there is some truth in that. And we also need to look at some of our cultural items that we can incorporate into teaching our children in order to allow them to have a more holistic appreciation, a better understanding of their particular environment. I have to say, though, that the education that I received, I would have been educated in the 50s and the 60s. Our education, to my mind, focused too much on what was happening outside of Trinidad and Tobago as opposed to what was happening in Trinidad and Tobago. I studied British and European history, okay? There was some West Indian history, but it was more British and European history. And the implication was always, well, this is the more important history. you know, and for geography, we talked about the Alps and the Himalayas and so on. All very interesting and very good information. But it would have been good to also have more geographical knowledge of our swamps and our water areas that are so important for our environment here in Trinidad and Tobago. So we have had some mismatches along the way. Our business now, our real business now should be, what is the product we want out of our education system? What do we want our young people to be? And based on that and what the country needs to develop, we tailor our education system along those lines.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you both, Mrs. Laureen Boris Phillips, the PRO and past president of the Tobago Writers Guild, and also Anne-Marie Davis, vice president of the Tobago Writers Guild, talking to us about their 9th annual event taking place Wednesday, 30th May. Is there a number that we can call to contact you to get further information for those looking on?
Yes, 797-5936. All right, and could I just add that this year we are adding a literary event in the Windward area in Roxborough on June the 3rd, and that is going to be free. All right?
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. I know we digressed a bit, but I enjoyed hearing your opinion on the education system and what we can do here to improve that and also improve the imagination of our young people.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Most appreciated. You're most welcome. Thank you so much.